Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of Moohead Radio. Just up front, this is the last South Carolina show of the season. I'm flying tomorrow to Florida, where I have my other barn and other studio, and we'll be broadcasting from there henceforth until the end of March when we come back here again. And I will be flying, so when I touch down and land, I'll let everybody know that Mr. Moohead arrived safely and that I didn't Buddy Holly. No. I died just like Buddy Holly. Okay, how's everybody doing? Today, we get a crystal clear look at the things that I've been talking about on Moohead Radio. I don't mean just on the halftime and post-game shows, which, by the way, we are talking about over 1,200 people watching the program. So the worse the Browns play, the dumber things they do, the better the viewership. So it's like, great. I'm all for it. I don't know about you, but I'm all in for 0-16, man. It's benefiting me in some strange way. Here's the first thing that I wanted to talk about today, and Michelle can't join us today because she's got family involvement, so that comes first all the time. Anybody who wants to join the show, check out the chat room at mooheadradio.com. You can click on the link and you can jump into the show if you want. It is, after all, at least in some way, shape, or form, your show, so why the hell not? Make yourselves and your voice heard. Okay, what I wanted to talk about today is the way the first half ended, and I didn't have all of the information. I could guess kind of where, what had happened, but now we know, thanks to not Hugh Jackson and DeShone Kaiser, but thanks to Joel Bitonio and to Seth DeValve. But be that as it may, the first thing I wanted to talk about is Hue and DeShone. Because these two people obviously are two peas in a pod. It sounds almost Forrest Gump-esque. It's like me and Jenny. Two peas in a pod. And just as dumb as me. First of all, we knew that one of them was responsible for this, yet neither one would clearly answer, except Hugh's typical, well, I basically accept responsibility for everything, which in this case, just pack your suitcase and leave Cleveland and never come back. Because if you're taking all responsibility for this, bye. We'll see you, Hugh. But the real killer of this is Kaiser. Let's analyze, and the reason I want to kind of focus on him so I don't get attacked by people that I'm being unfair in today's overly sensitive environment and society that we live in, is the stories that were told, after the game by two players who are basically grunts, who are obviously not informed by Hue and DeShone what their what their stock answer should be. So we get Joel Bitonio saying, oh, yeah, it was an audible called at the line. And DeValve said, yeah, the play that was going to be run was going to be, a play in which Duke Johnson was going to be faked to, and it was going to be a play action pass. And DeValve ran the pattern, and it was going to be that way. When they got to the line of scrimmage, obviously, Kaiser thought he saw something. And sometimes when somebody says they see something, it really matters. And I'll give you an example about the guy who was the trainer of Joe Louis, Chappie Blackburn. And when they fought Max Schmeling, they were confident, overconfident, and Smelling's trainer, in broken English, when asked about Joe Louis, said, I sees something. And what he saw was that Lewis was dropping his left hand and that Maxey had a really big right hand. So Schmeling just kept bombing Lewis entire fight with right hands, just bombed him out. And it was really a tough moment, the toughest moment in Joe Lewis's career. Sometimes when people see something, they see something. Other times, as Tommy James and the Shondells would say, just a mirage, that's all you are to me. Sometimes they are just seeing water in the desert. And in this case, DeShone Kizer thought he saw something and he audibilized out of the play call and ran what had to be the all-time worst sneak in NFL history. The odd part of it is that Bart Starr somewhere was basically saying, shit, I could do better than that now. Kind of a difficult thing, folks. It didn't come close. And it was a disaster. And you ask yourself, why did this happen? Oh, the aftermath of the play, people saw Hue Jackson rip his headset off and throw it. And then, of course, Duke Johnson ripped his headset off and threw it, and he got a penalty. 15 yards, and of course, he thought he might be getting the ball, or at least being faked to. He thought, but it was obvious when you see the play replayed that nobody was on the same page. Some people realized that he'd audibled out of it. Some people didn't. And this is the gang that couldn't shoot straight, folks. I mean, we're lucky if we stay on sides, for God's sake. So here you go. He audibilizes, half the team doesn't know it, so his guys are going different. That's why there was no cohesive blocking on the play, which obviously Kizer didn't realize the significance of audibilizing out of something with no timeouts left, and to audibilize into a running play with no timeouts left. I remember many years ago when somebody made a horrible quote about an African-American athlete saying, and he doesn't have the necessities. Do you remember the Los Angeles Dodgers? He doesn't have the necessities for the job. And everyone, this is not a black and white issue, but this is a quarterback issue. And if you don't realize that with no timeouts and the clock running, that if you don't make it, the game's over. Instead of sitting there and bitching about, he held me down. It's like, well, why were you laying on the ground in the first place? You were supposed to throw a pass. If it wasn't there, dump it, get it out of the end zone, and kick the field goal. So why? We ask ourselves, why did Kizer audibilize? And, you want to be fair, but at the same time, I think it's the reason that Duke Johnson slammed his helmet to the turf. There's nothing worse than a guy who's out for himself. DeShone Kizer put his personal interest and professional interest first in front of the team. Plain and simple, his making the play became more important than the team making the play. I can think of no other reason that he would audibilize out of that except so he could try to click his heels in the end zone and say, I did it again. Me. That's what I think. And the results of the play kind of speak for themselves because it lost the half for the Browns. Such an easy thing to do. And it's funny, in weeks previously, I got to learn how to take what the defense gives me and all the speeches that Kizer gives. The fact of the matter is he's a selfish 21-year-old Notre Dame big man on campus piece of shit. And I'm sorry, folks. I fire him today. I get rid of him today. Because you know something? Football is more than just trench warfare. I mean, there are guys giving their lives for this, folks. Literally giving their lives for this. There are guys like Joe Thomas, who's sitting there on the sidelines with his arm in a cast and all bandaged up, who's gone for the season, who played countless seasons and plays in a row for an organization that couldn't win. If you could do that with Joe Thomas looking at you from the sidelines, you are a human piece of excrement. The ultimate sacrifice that athletes make to play the game is their lives, but the intermediate sacrifice that they make is that they stand behind one another and they have an understanding that what might be best for the team might not be best for the individual. For every completed pass, there are multiple other receivers who ran routes convincingly who didn't get the ball. For every guy who got the ball, there's a bunch of guys blocking who, in the case of tight ends and running backs, picking up blitzes, didn't get the ball. Then there's the offensive lineman. The guys like Batonio were like, guy calls an audible. The coach told me that he's allowed to audibilize, so I'm going to run the play the quarterback says because I'm a team guy, even though he knew. Batonio knew. Anyone who heard the audible had to know it was a horrible idea. I stand behind my guy. The only one who's not standing behind anybody is Kaiser. And he's looking out for himself because he's 0-9 now. He hasn't won. And it's becoming more and more apparent that he's going to suck as an NFL quarterback. And even if he doesn't, because, all you heard afterwards was Hue, this is the best game Kaiser played. It was the worst game that Kaiser played because of one play. We talk about character issues. We talk about Josh Gordon. Should we rest of the Browns give Josh Gordon another opportunity? Should they? Character issues do matter. And when guys after the fact say, oh, no, I was drunk and high. Every time I came to practice, every game I came out and played, I was wasted. After telling everybody 1,000 times that he was clean, it's character. What is it? Fool me once, you know the saying. And that's not even as a fan. That's it as an employer, and I hired a lot of people in my life, and there were a lot of great people that I still love today and keep in communication with today. And there were others who were human pieces of excrement who were only interested about themselves. There was one guy who was a disc jockey who would, whenever he would go out and do a live remote broadcast for the radio station, he was compensated to do that, by the way. He got extra money to do it. He would walk out and hand out his business cards with his own private business on it. God, I loved firing that fuckhead. I loved firing him. It's like, how dare you? You're on 25,000 watts of FM radio in the top-rated radio station in Flint, Michigan, and we gave you an opportunity to increase public awareness of you. Can't you do that on your own time? You do that in front of an advertiser? You do that in place of promoting the radio station that employs you? Fuck you. Get out of here. Had no problem firing that person. Because in the end, we were in the trenches together. And the people who are with CK105 in Flint, Michigan to this day, there's a Facebook page up and all the people who work there, they'll tell you what it was like. And we were all, soldiers in arms. We were just a brotherhood. And when somebody stepped in and did their own thing at the expense of the company, it stuck out like a sore thumb. It really did. That's what Kaiser did. And I got no patience for it. Now, the other thing is everybody's saying, well, Kaiser wanted to get back in the game after his ribs were hurt and yada, yada. He's courageous. And look, I think that he would do everything for himself, whatever it would take, because he thought that was a win. He thought he was going to come in and win. And that would be a W on his record. Fuck the Browns. That would be his validation. I'm getting better, and I'm a starting quarterback in the NFL, and I'm next year's starter. And you can't change that. Ray Parker Jr. reference at 17 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock. So, the thing I can't understand is this complicity, SAT word, complicity between Hue Jackson and DeShone Kizer. I don't get it. I'm confused. Why would you stonewall the press when the other guys in the locker room are already talking about, oh, yeah, he audibleized out of it? Why would you do that? What would the reason be? Why would you stand up there and allow the coach to take the heat when you're Kizer? Why wouldn't you stand up and be a man and say, you know something, that wasn't on Hue. That was on me. I chose to do that in the critical moment, and I blew it. Isn't that what a man does? Isn't that what a leader does? Doesn't hide behind daddy's long trousers. He ain't no fortunate son. It's so disturbing to me that the guy who is perceived as the leader of the team would allow the head coach to take all the flack. And now this. Hue Jackson, don't think that this gets you off the hook. There were plays earlier in the season that you allowed this nincompoop to audibilize, and you should have taken that right away from him a long fucking time ago. It should never have come to this. These mistakes at critical junctures are not part of a learning process. And I'm tired of, well, how else is he going to learn? Well, it's simple. When a child is very young, before they understand, you don't let them get close to a hot stove. You don't sit there and say, you have, here's how you turn on the heat. And, I trust you not to put your hand and face in the fire. It's not the way you raise a child. When the child is of age to understand, you give him more or her more freedoms. So it should be with quarterbacks. He showed bad judgment throughout the entire year, throwing to the wrong people, forcing passes in. There was no reason for he to even be in a position to audibilize that. And that's the reason that Hue has to go with him. Let them go together because they're complicit in this whole thing, and it's really pathetic. It really is pathetic. They're standing up there basically intentionally being obtuse about things, and nobody's really standing up and being accountable. The head coach says it, just shut everybody up. But why lie? The thing is, Hue Jackson is a pathological liar, and I keep telling you this over and over and over. Nothing that comes out of his mouth is straight. I've spent enough time on this, but I think you get the idea. If you're not in it for the team and you're in it for yourself, go someplace else. And as for Hue Jackson, go someplace else. And the front office, go someplace else. And yes, we've got to start all over again. Meanwhile, LeBron James saying that Deshaun Watson should have been the Browns quarterback. Kaiser's great response, well, that has nothing to do with me. Like, I wasn't the dumb fuck who picked me. yeah, it's just, let's just keep pointing fingers here. So here's what we know. Kaiser is Hue Jackson's guy. And in the fight between Hue Jackson and the front office, Kaiser's got Hue's back like Hue's got Kaiser's back when he fucks up on the field by audibilizing into a horrible play. They got each other's back. The problem is the owner's got to step in and break this thing up now. Because it's true that Kaiser had nothing to do with him being drafted and Watson not being drafted, but what he's shown on the football field is terrible. What the front office showed in the draft is terrible, and what Hue Jackson has shown strategically and responsibility-wise is terrible. They all need to be gone. J.B. Collins out for the season with an MCL. You know, it's really interesting. That's a hard thing to do, folks. The ACL is the most commonly destroyed ligament. Usually the MCL, this is Dr. Moohead speaking, is something that does not require surgery, A, and B, doesn't get really ripped out, except usually in car accidents, where what they call the Holy Trinity takes place, which is your ACL, your MCL, and your PCL. They all pop. Goes the weasel, pop, pop. But an MCL injury, I actually tore an MCL when I slipped in the Bahamas on wet pavement. My leg folded under me. And that's usually not a surgical repair, but it is a long injury. If it's a grade 2, the season would be over for Jamie Collins. So I don't think this is a surgical thing, but I think it is. Of course, it is the end of his season. Here's another headline. Why Kaiser showed growth despite the Browns' loss. We'll skip that. There can be no growth that starts with me. I ain't going for that. Here's another thing that I noticed and I take away from the game. Ricardo Lewis should be sold at auction. He doesn't try. He doesn't fight for the ball. On 2 occasions you saw it, the one that went through his hands on the long pass down the sidelines in which he wouldn't get physical to get in position to catch the ball, and the final chance to score points in the game, he just let the defensive back take the corner of the end zone away from him. He's a waste. You can't win with players like this. Start over. I know it's painful for Browns fans, but you don't want to watch this act continue to dissolve. Get rid of him. All right. Let's move on from the Cleveland Browns. The less said, the better. Wow. Free agent Carlos Santana expected to reject a $17.4 million qualifying offer from the Cleveland Indians. Well, there are a number of first basemen on the market, Eric Hosmer and he being the top 2. The Red Sox are allegedly interested in Carlos Santana because they just don't hit enough home runs. And you know something? If you put Carlos Santana in Boston and tell him, okay, you got to hit a bunch of home runs, God help your soul. Let him go there. If all the pressure is going to be on him to hit the ball out of the ballpark, you know that uppercut swing is going to be worse than ever. And, you know, the thing about Santana that's a shame, when he was a young player in the minor leagues, he actually would hit to all fields. And he became strictly a pull hitter. And he's actually a better hitter from the right side than he is the left side of the plate. because he's less uppercutty and has less power from the right side, but hits more line drives. The best thing you could say about Carlos Santana, these are the things that I would tell you. He does walk a lot, although not with men in scoring position where he becomes thoroughly impatient and swings at anything that comes close to home plate. And he improved as a defensive player by playing the first base position, winning an award this year, a Wilson Award for his defensive work. And that's good. And he basically will hit 240 to 260. But he's not a power guy who even hits as many home runs as a Jay Bruce does. He's a guy who really you can expect maybe 25 home runs, something like that from. He's not a guy who hits 40 home runs. He's not Edwin Encarnacion, right? And $17.4 million is a fair qualifying offer, seeing as how he made 12 last year. But the bottom line is that you expect Carlos Santana to investigate his options. And I'm all for it because you can do better, folks. Now, it will tell you this. I will read the names of the other first basemen who are available, and this will tell you everything you need to know. There's Hosmer, Lorenzo Cain. These are the guys who received qualifying offers. Mike Moustakas, Lance Lynn of St. Louis, Alex Cobb, pitcher of Tampa Bay, Greg Holland, relief pitcher of Colorado, Jake Arrieta, the starter, and Wade David of the Cubs. But in the world of first baseman, it's, believe me, Yonder Alonso, Chris Carter, Adam Lind, Mitch Moreland, Mike Napoli, and Mark Reynolds. God damn, didn't a bunch of those guys already play for us? No, I don't want Mark Reynolds and Mike Napoli. The party shut down a long time ago for Napoli. If they bring him back, I'm going to fucking scream. But you look at these other names, and it's like, I don't know. Chris Carter has power, but doesn't hit for average at all, and erratic. Adam Lind has been in the league since Hector was a pup. Mitch Moreland is a guy who's kind of I don't know. Reynolds is a guy who got off to that incredible hot start, but turned into, well, Mark Reynolds. I say, let Santana go. There's other things that you can accomplish. The other thing I don't understand is why the press is writing. What the Indians really need more than anything else out of free agency is a guy who's a right-handed hitter who plays third base. And Yandy Diaz is sitting there going, what is it you have against me? Oh, we want more home runs. We want more home runs. You better find some place to put Diaz, folks, because he can flat out hit. And you know something? If you're concerned about his lack of power, just remember, Francisco Lindor was projected to be a 8 home run a season guy. And look, and it is funny because Ziffles, the piglet, was in the chat room and he's no longer here. He believed he was an 8 home run a year guy. I said, the guy might mature into a 15 home run and 80, a 15 and 80 guy. That's what I thought Lindor was offensively. And look what's happened. Now, Diaz is older than Lindor, granted. But the other thing about Diaz is that the way he hits is quite intentional. It's the way that he hits line drives and goes opposite field. But of all the players on the Cleveland Indians, the ball leaves his bat faster with more velocity than any other hitter. I'll just leave you to ponder that. If he gets under the ball with a juice ball, he will hit some home runs. And he will hit more for average because he's going to hit line drives. He'll hit doubles. I don't care about home runs. I want to see a guy drive in runs. I want to see a guy make solid contact with the ball. And if you can find me a third baseman who will not be picked up by one of the New York teams or Boston or one of the big payroll teams, Good point by Dark Sealer in the chat room. You don't overpay a guy on the wrong side of 30. And power hitters, it's, you know how it goes. When the bat slows down just a little bit, you know, it's a risk with Encarnacion, isn't it? It's a risk. Some guys keep their reflexes. Some guys, it just goes south. And it is, you know, our Fresh is saying Santana will go to Boston, Bruce will go to California, and that leaves us with Bupkis. Nothing. But again, I like the addition of Jay Bruce on a rental, but I'm not so sure what you get with Jay Bruce is remarkably different than what you get from Carlos Santana, except that Jay Bruce is not really a very good defensive player, good team guy. But all of these types of guys like Napoli, they're always available in free agency, right? And I think with a juice baseball, these guys have become less valuable. I mean, when Altuve can go up there and hit 27 home runs, I mean, you know, when midgets are hitting 27 home runs in big league baseball, you know, maybe you start looking at something a little different. Yeah, the Sandoval deal. That's what Dark Sealer is saying in the chat room. Absolutely. You know, there was a guy who had a weight problem to boot. I mean, when they're over 30 and they're not in physical condition, then you got a real fucking problem, don't you? So, I don't know. I wanted to go to talk a little bit about the post-game and halftime show because today's the day that I like to respond to people. Thank you to a bunch of new subscribers to Moohead Radio, including Damiana Theater, Daniel Ortiz, Mark Green, Sauce Montana. These people just literally within the last 24 hours subscribing to the Moohead Radio YouTube channel. You can too. Just go to YouTube. In the search bar, put in Moohead, one word, second word, radio. The channel will come up. Subscribe to it, folks. It doesn't mean you have to listen every time. It just makes it easier. You get notified when I'm live, that kind of shit, you know? It's just technology. But, you know, not too many people making a ton of comments. A lot more comments being made from the halftime show, which is interesting because this halftime show, because of what Kaiser did, was the most watched halftime show in the history of the program. Some comments. The Browns now have clarity at quarterback. They need to draft one again. I hope they find someone decent to do the picking. Yeah. And then Ken Make It said Joe Banner is experienced. They invoked the name, so here we go. Every time you mention Joe Banner and you invoke his name. Hi there. Thought it couldn't get worse, didn't you? You know, one of the things that I wanted to do more than anything else is to go T-Pain on your ass. Wouldn't that be great? I could process my voice and I could actually like kind of sing-song my joy, how the Browns have collapsed since I've left. Thought it couldn't get worse. Not me. It's not me. All right, enough of that. Fucking Joe Banner. You know, it becomes like, I guess if you were a Doors fan, you would refer to the Browns front office as the soft parade. Never have I seen a worse collection of wannabes in my life. And the amazing thing is that Joe Banner is still tweeting. And it's like, who the hell would follow Joe Banner on Twitter? Like, when you had a chance to do something about this, you did dick, you know? I want to hear what you have to say now. It's invalidated. At least I have some credibility because I never had the fucking job, right? But if you had the job, and you're even starting to hear ex-Browns coaches feeling sorry for Hue, and it's like, oh my God. Welcome to the loser club. Unbelievable. You know, I really feel sorry for him like I still feel sorry for myself. Wow. Robert Smecker says, I have been listening to your post-game podcast for about 3 weeks now. You're spot on about the Browns. I wish I weren't. Honestly. I really wish I weren't. One guy actually said, what you say is so full of wisdom. And I said, wow. Even I can't buy into that. Wisdom has never been a word that I've been associated with. Here's a report coming out of the NFL. The owners are telling Jerry Jones to just forget about the Goodell fight. What an asshole Jerry Jones is. And, great. Isn't it great that they lost? You know, I wanted to talk about the Pick'em League too, because, you know, the more these games go on, the harder it is seemingly for people to separate too much. You know, I didn't do so well. I got 9 right. Here were my misses. Okay, I picked Buffalo over New Orleans. Shoot me in the head now. And for some reason, on the show, I picked Green Bay to beat Chicago, and it just picked Chicago for me. And I feel badly about that because I told you I would never pick Mitch Trubisky for anything, even against a lousy Green Bay team. So I paid for that because I don't consider that my fault. But you know something? Like Hugh Jackson, I'm going to take responsibility. I was wrong about Minnesota and Washington, a game that probably could have gone either way. Defensive game, 38-30. I was wrong about that. And San Francisco did, in fact, beat the New York Giants. Say goodbye to Eli Manning. Say goodbye to Hollywood. Say goodbye, my baby. Of course, I got the New England-Denver game right. And boy, Brock Osweiler was sensational, wasn't he? He had a 58 quarterback rating. Ooh, it makes me hard just thinking about it. Wow. I've picked Carolina tonight. My New England score pick was 31-17 that ended up 41-16. Who will score the most points? Mr. Moohead said New England. Mr. Moohead lost because New Orleans did 47, and it's not fair. I never thought Buffalo would give up in their home stadium 47 points, but so it goes. In the overall Pick'em League, in the great scheme of things, number 1, the second coming of Dwayne Bowe, still at the top with 98. Lance with 96. Uh-oh. The Fa-Fa's Follies at 94. Pure Rage sinks to 94. Buddy. Gmo at 93 and me at 93. I can't get to any closer than 4 or 5 from the top. The second coming of Dwayne Bowe keeps moving, but Lance has moved up to 96 to be the new challenger to the second coming of Dwayne Bowe at the top. So Sundance also at 93. So there's your Pick'em League in a nutshell. LeBron James has praised Lonzo Ball for his record triple-double. You know, we have to just keep picking out those little things that Lonzo Ball did well. Lonzo Ball had a good game, and I'm sure that he's going to have other good games. I mean, Jeremy Lin had triple-doubles too. Until he gets the shot fixed, but you say, oh, but he was 7 of 12. It's like, I want to see what happens with this kid. Maybe he's not used to the speed of the game, but I'd say that his passing shows that he is. I just don't think he can shoot. LeBron also said it's great for the league when New York and LA are powerful and Boston are powerful. He's not going to New York. But now that, again, has brought up the possibility of him becoming a Laker. As far as the NBA, the Cavaliers play tonight at New York, and LeBron did something he shouldn't have done. And I'm the first one to praise LeBron James when he does something good, but why continue a fight with a man who's no longer in the game? Phil Jackson is gone. Gone, been gone so long, been gone. Ooh, he's gone. He's chili whacked. Another obscure music reference. Why would you rip the Knicks for picking a guy from France instead of the guy you just got done playing against, Smith from from Dallas? Why? It's like, you got to be the bigger man. But LeBron can't be the bigger man. And what he's done is he's created a landmine that the Cavaliers might well step on tonight. And anyway, New York is 7-5 to our 6-7, and we're playing in New York. It'll be very interesting at the top of the hour to see what happens. Although I'm not all that excited about it. I wish LeBron would have kept his mouth shut. As for the Cavaliers' win, a couple of things I wanted to point out. One, Dirk Nowitzki, why is he playing? Look, I understand how great he was for the organization. Our Fresh 20 is saying apparently, like pure rage may become pure shit at this rate. Nah. There's always another save possibility. Always. Apparently, you don't pick against the purple people eaters this year. Like I don't give a shit about the Minnesota Vikings. Who really cares? Dark Sailor says the Black Mr. Clean needs to grow some hair and be shown the door. He shows no adjustments. He has shown no improvement at all. I'm just saying what people are saying in the chat room. People are getting super apathetic. They'll react during the game, but once it's over, the Browns lose. They just don't care to talk about it anymore unless you're that crazy guy, Jeremy in Akron, who screams about his sources all day on Twitter. I muted the guy. I got so sick and tired of him talking about how great his fucking world is, and he sold his podcast to some ambulance chasing attorney who's a friend of his, and I got tired of it. It's like mute. You know what? I listen to his podcast. It's all right. If that's your cup of tea, just like if this is your cup of tea, you watch it. You know, I've got no problems. Guy wants to do a podcast. God bless him. But, you know, it's just so self-serving. Dark Sailor says, to me, the best free agent is Mike Moustakas. I'd love to get him. Yeah, but you're not gonna. He's going to be bid up so big. Bid up so big. You're never going to see that. Let's see what else. Dark Sailor says it's easy to get a triple-double when no one plays defense and there's fouls on every play. That's, you know, if you play out in the West, probably it's way easier for guards to get rebounds in the West because of all the crazy rebounds that come off three-point misses and how many shots they take in the periods of the game because they're running up and down, shooting and not setting anything up. And it's also easier to get assists. I mean, yeah, this is a triple-double league the way that it's set up now. Will Tyronn Lue be fired if the Cavs don't win a championship this year? No. My belief is that they'll stick with him with lesser talent and see if the players actually listen to him then. The problem I have with Teron Lewis is that he shouldn't be running. And it's a good segue, and I appreciate you making the comment, Dark Sealer, because it was what I was going to start talking about, is that the win against Dallas, and I was saying, why in the hell is Nowitzki still playing? And I understand what he's done for the organization, but my God, talking about a statue out there. And it didn't matter who was on him. I mean, Kevin Love ripped him to shreds driving around him, and Green just run around him, and anybody could attack him. The only thing he can do is stand still if somebody forgets about him and shoot the ball. And he was in critical minutes of the game when the game was lost for Dallas. But what the Cavaliers did better in this game is that they didn't try to run up and down. When they did, that's when they lost their lead. You know, the Cavaliers, they built up that 12, 13-point lead. And then all of a sudden, they started the running and the sloppy and the turnovers that turned into, runouts and layups. And they started really taking ill-advised quick threes and not running their sets. And that's a surefire way, man. Surefire way. They're going to get beat down the floor, and that's all there is to it. Wade played a terrible game against Dallas. He was horrible. Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But in the end, when we did keep the ball in the half court, run our plays, get guys open off screens, some backdoor cuts, and that kind of thing, we had more energy to play defense. Plus, it wasn't an open floor for people to just beat us with their speed. The Cavaliers need to be an offensive half-court team, and the opportunities that they get at runouts from defense. This is not a team that can just go north-south, up and down the court. It's not what they do. They're too old to do it. But if they're allowed to play in a system that is a half-court system, not only will they get organized, share the ball, more assists, more three-point shots, not only that, but they'll have energy to play defense on the other half of the court. And that's really where the whole thing is won and lost, isn't it? And I'm not going to tell you that Dallas is a good basketball team. But when things went to hell was when the game sped up. And we got crushed by the New York Knicks running up and down like crazy people against them. And that should not happen again. Dark Sealer's now saying, by the way, people on Brown's SB Nation said that they want to debate you on a podcast because you bash the Browns. They think Sashi Brown is a genius. I mean, honestly, a debate? Debating somebody who believes Sashi Brown is a genius would be like arm wrestling an Ethiopian who is starving to death. I'm glad that people aren't taking note of the podcast, and there's a link right here. Bring it on. I invite anybody to come on here and match wits with me. It's easy to talk about that shit on social media. It's easy to do that. But to come on here and make cogent arguments, you got to be a man, something that Kaiser doesn't know about. You got to be a man to come on this program because there ain't no fucking teleprompter. And I'll sit there and I'll let you make your points and I will answer them one by one. Because I don't think that anybody could stand up for Sashi Brown based on the way things have fallen apart for the organization. Dark Sealer's also saying the Cavs getting rid of Kyrie was a mistake, especially because they tried replacing him with no knees Rose. Kyrie had the killer instinct the Cavs need. Well, it wasn't that the Cavs got rid of Kyrie. It was that Kyrie got rid of the Cavs. I mean, look. When LeBron James left the Cavaliers, the decision to go to Miami and take his talents to South Beach, I don't believe that one day LeBron just woke up and said, I got to have me some Miami. I believe the league contacted LeBron and said, we think it might be in the best interest of the league after your 7 years in Cleveland, which David Stern actually came out and said 7 years in Cleveland is enough. How the commissioner could possibly make a comment like that, I have no idea. This is, the guy who was, lording over the NBA when guys would stay with the Lakers for like their entire fucking career, but 7 years was plenty enough for Cleveland, which will tell you what he thought of the mid-market, and that's the NBA. The NBA doesn't give a shit about the mid-sized market. They're trying to get the upper tier market back again. I think Kyrie was told, the team of the future is the Celtics. And I told you all that last year, that the whole thing is slanted for the Boston Celtics in the future, and it's no different now. They're going to get every favorable call, and they got Kyrie Irving. And you honestly, could you sit there and say, God, I can't believe the team didn't make a better offer for Kyrie Irving than just what we got, an injured guy and Jay Crowder and meaningless picks. And nobody came to that party. Nobody came to that party because it was a fait accompli. You just got to deal with it because that's the way the league's been since the beginning. There was those years when Dr. Jerry Buss owned the Lakers, they said it was like, I think it was crazy. It was like a 30-year period where they never lost a free agent. They never had a defection from their team. I mean, could you imagine that? Stop and think about the guys who played their entire career. 1 year in Milwaukee, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar goes to LA and is swallowed up and never leaves, right? Magic Johnson never leaves. James Worthy never leaves. I mean, it's really easy to be great when you just run up your goddamn bill and you keep players forever. That's not real hard. What do I think of Kyrie Irving? I've always felt he was a talented ball player. His stats are no different, maybe even a little less at this point with Boston. They were with Cleveland. However, they got young legs in Boston, and they're playing defense, and they're listening to their coach, who knows what kind of team he wants on the floor and how he wants them to play. The problem with Ty Lue is that he's still of this, we got to run, and he has really got to reassess. Like now, like tonight, because we're going to fall further and further behind 500 if we keep running. We just don't have that. These guys are blowing by us. We need to get traction on defense. That means you got to walk the ball up, run your plays, and if you get good percentage shots, you're getting down the floor and you're forcing them after makes to bring the ball up and get into their sets. You're not giving up layups. You're not giving up easy transition points. I'm glad to see Lonzo Ball fail. His dad is the most obnoxious man ever. His son was never great and was overhyped by the media. Well, I'm not saying that he's failing, but I mean, look, you can't mention him in the same breath as guys who are Hall of Fame players when he's 19 years old. Let it settle. The thing that I dislike most about it is it's not just LeVar and his big mouth who are hyping and pimping his son. It's the league. Everywhere you look, everything that's being said, they're being told to talk about Lonzo Ball. And the reason is they really want you to talk about Lakers. That's what the league's initiative is to get Los Angeles back on the map, because it didn't happen with the Clippers, okay? That's all that is. I don't want to see Lonzo Ball fail. I want Lonzo Ball to be Lonzo Ball. Whatever that is, good, great, bust, whatever it is. But don't try to sway me with nonstop 24/7 coverage. I have eyes. I know what great is. I know who the big scorer is going to be. I know. You see him come out of college and you see the impact early on, you know who's going to be really good. Right now, this kid needs to put weight on. He needs strength. He needs to learn to finish. No point guard worth his weight ever made it as an all-time great without being able to penetrate. And that goes for Steve Nash, for God's sakes. I mean, Steve Nash was not a big guy, but he was clever and got underneath the basket. He would dish off. He could score. He could do all kinds of things. But at the heart of it, you look at a guy like that, Steve Nash, and he was playing in an open floor concept, just like the Lakers are, but he could shoot the hell out of the three ball. You know, if Lonzo Ball is going to be one of these guys you can play 5 feet off of, it's going to be hard for him to work his way into the paint and do his magic. It's going to be very difficult. He's got to learn how to finish at the rim. And the first part of it is get stronger, young man. Hit the weight room, get stronger, because you're going to be going in to the tall weeds. And something else, if you're pass first, good. Because if you challenge too much, you end up like Derrick Rose, which is old and beat up at 28. You don't want that. What you got to do is you got to work on your outside perimeter shot. Because if you don't have that, then the blow-by is, they're going to Eric Snow you, aren't they? They're going to just lay off you and let you throw up shots. They're going to Ricky Rubio you. And the final comment from Dark Sailor, the problem with the Cavs, they have 0 legit big men. Thompson is garbage, and I wish we would have never signed him. Our guys are too slow and too old. Teams like the Warriors have young athletic guys in their prime, and we have LeBron and Wade and Rose past their prime. And the other thing is big man means something entirely different right now than it meant before. All right? Your big men like Karl Anthony Towns, like the guy we're going to see, Kristaps Porzingis. These guys are guys who can handle the ball and, or Embiid, and can shoot behind the three-point line. A big man isn't just a big, just a big stump of a man. It's not like Andrew Bogut, Big men now are different. And you bet we don't have any legit big men. We don't have Derek Cousins. We don't have guys like that. Anthony Davis, we don't have these people. Nope. And big men, believe me, and don't say Zizic, or else I'm going to hit you. I'm going to slap you, because we don't have any big guys who have that skill set. And a lot of teams don't. But that's the way the league is morphing. And more big men who can handle the ball and spread the court. That's what this league is all about. If you can get a guy who can block shots at the defensive end, and Porzingis is proving that his reach is very valuable in that regard, but on the offensive end, can not only run the floor, but spread the floor, that's today's NBA. The only hope that the Cleveland Cavaliers have is to become the half-court team that grinds it out and plays hard and uses their experience, and that's not enough to get back into the finals. That's it for the show today. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I do appreciate it, folks. I'm flying back tomorrow to Florida. I'll be back on the air, God willing, on Friday when I've got my internet and studio connected. If there are any differences or problems, I will let you know on Twitter. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good week, and I'll see you on Friday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.